When most people think about cryptocurrencies, they're thinking about meme coins, they're thinking about Bitcoin, they're thinking about the guy who bought 2 pizzas for 10,000 Bitcoins in the early 2010s. Can you imagine that? There's actually been a little campaign going on Binance, like they give you a bit of Bitcoin. It's like a pizza thing. But anyway, that's what most people think of, Mr. Hunselaar, but not us. Not us.
Yeah.
We're mechanical engineers.
We are interested about the technology.
The technology, the things behind it, right? So when we're thinking about crypto, we're thinking about the cool technology. We're thinking about the stuff there to keep the crypto monster alive. And we've chosen, like I said, a perfect time to do this because Bitcoin has gone from about $76,000 up to over $105,000 in the last month. Damn, right? That's a 38% surge. And that's not even the craziest one, man. Ethereum, the second biggest cryptocurrency, has seen almost 100% increase in the last few weeks. So I think we've chosen a timely topic. But this week, we are not going to be talking about investing, buying, trading, whatever in cryptocurrencies. We're going to be talking a bit about the technology behind cryptocurrencies and what it might mean for humanity and artificial intelligence going forward. So this is me, Jonathan Delport, your host of the High Level Podcast, and I'm joined as always by my beautiful co-host, Mr. Damon Hunselaar. How are you in our matching shirts, Mr. Hunselaar?
Twinsies. I am grand.
Going on. How's your week been?
Solid week. Week's been right, man.
Okay.
How's your week been?
You're surviving. No, we just finished up our race. So, was that last week?
It was, yeah.
It was last week.
Saturday.
And how was it for you?
I finished stronger than I thought I was going to finish. So, in my mind,
winner.
I'm killing it.
Winner. Killing it. All right,
yeah.
Great. You're a winner in my heart as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I mean, I didn't come dead last. So,
so that's all that matters.
So there's someone out there, and I'm
thinking
better
about
than
you. Okay, yeah, no, fair enough. They're thinking about how am I going to get past this guy, right? Exactly that. All right, guys. So we're talking about cryptocurrencies this week. And for those of us who don't know cryptocurrencies, or maybe you know it just at a very low level, and you're going to be my case study today. I'm going to imagine you as a lowly, not a guy who knows the dank memes about crypto, Mr. Hunselaar. So I'm going to teach you a bit about crypto since I'm a little bit deep in it. Not too deep, but deep enough, right? You only need to be deep enough. So at a very basic level, cryptocurrency is a digital asset. It's recorded on a blockchain, which is a decentralized tamper-proof ledger. So I think in order for us to understand this, the best place to start with is definitions, right?
Yeah. I mean, you said a lot of words there.
There was a lot of words.
Like, what does it mean to be decentralized?
All of that stuff.
Or what's a tamper-proof ledger?
What's a tamper-proof ledger? This is what I'm here for. I'm here to walk you through it, man. Okay, so digital asset. You happy with what a digital asset is? A digital asset is something that exists in software. Okay? It's an asset that someone has ownership of, but it's in the software world. It's not out here in the real world with us.
Okay? It's not tangible.
It's not tangible, right?
I can't give you softwares for physically.
You can try. It would be nice if you tried for me. But okay, that's what digital is. It's in the software, it's in the cloud, it's in the wherever. It's not in the physical world. If we think about cryptocurrency, some people call it crypto as well. Mainly digital payment infrastructure, all right? We'll get a bit more into the nuance of it a bit just now. In terms of the blockchain, so this is where that tamper-proof ledger comes in. The blockchain basically is a place where you log all your transactions, like a ledger. Like for the accountants out there, it's a ledger. It's an Excel spreadsheet that cannot be changed, okay? That is what the blockchain is. And each time, there's a whole bunch of people that have to verify and say, yes, we believe this transaction is true, okay? And that's what a blockchain is. And then the decentralized nature, so this is a very, you'll see in the crypto community, they call it DeFi. Decentralized finance, right? The whole idea is to take a central authority out of this whole thing, and it's the community that's saying these transactions are legit, these aren't, go away, bad transactions, these are the good transactions.
But why would we want to decentralize?
Well, you see, so if you guys take away one thing, you've watched 2-3 minutes of this video and you want to click away, just listen to this part, okay? The whole idea, the central tenet behind cryptocurrency is that anything that can be done through a central authority can also be done without the central authority. Mind blown, right? Mind blown. So I think the easiest way to discuss this is a voting system, right? Whether it's elections, national elections, whatever, voting system's pretty easy to understand. So in a voting system, you want to accomplish a few things. You want to keep the identity of the voters anonymous, right? So that you can see that there's no partiality in the voting. So you want to keep their identity anonymous. You want to be able to count the votes to see who won, right? You want to get a result by counting them. And you also want it to be a fairly efficient thing. You don't want people to spend a few weeks having to vote on something, right? So the main things is you want to get a result, but you don't want to disclose the information of those who are voting. And you want to be able to trust the result. So this is where we usually put in a centralized authority. What's it? The International Electoral Committee. That's the IEC, right? So that's usually what we do for national votes and stuff. We elect a central committee. We say, we trust you guys to take all the people's votes, to take them in, to count them, and to give us a result. Now, the idea around cryptocurrency and DeFi and all these things is that if you can do it with a central authority, you can do it without them just using math. And that's all crypto is, basically. It's about taking away that centralized authority and basically getting an output that you can trust.
So would you argue that it's also a solution to corruption?
It is, because you know what the biggest issue we come into when we have a central authority is it works fine until it doesn't. What happens when you don't trust the authority? Then a national election, for example, no one trusts it or no one wants to believe it, even if it is true. So if we can do it with maths, it's impartial. There's no corruption. There's no one who can be bribed into changing the blockchain or whatever. So that's the main idea behind blockchain, behind crypto. If you take away nothing, it's not just meme coins and Shiba Inu and Floki and all these weird things. It's about taking away that central authority. And you can think of this like the way people want to use, maybe older people want to use gold instead of using rands or dollars, right? They believe that gold is this magical thing. Bitcoin is called digital gold. So we're going to draw some parallels. They're not exactly the same thing, but that's the idea, that you can do anything with a central authority, you can do it without them. It's the central tenet of blockchain, right? And we use something that's known as cryptography in blockchain. So this is where the crypto part of this comes in. And we're not going to get into it because I, Mr. Hunselaar, do not have a software degree. And I speak to a man who also does not have a software degree. This guy right here. So basically cryptography, and we should maybe get a cryptographer on at some point. But the idea is you want to pass a box with a message in from me to you, and we only want you on the receiving end to be able to open that box to see what I said. And that's like a very basic, probably primary school level idea of what cryptography is. But this is the whole thing. We want transactions to be encrypted, and we want them to be verified on the blockchain. If everyone agrees they're legit, put them on the blockchain, log them. We can see where the money went. Bob's your uncle, Mary's your aunt, and then we carry on. So that's cryptography for you. Now the real question comes in, Mr. Hunselaar. Why do you think we need this at all? I obviously explained the election thing, and obviously this makes sense as a use of money. Why would we need this in the real world now that we live in, when we can just walk into a bookshop and buy a book with a 100 Rand note? Why do you think we would need this? Am I throwing you a bit under the bus?
A little bit, but I'm going to try and give a meaningful answer there.
Please.
So I think the first way is like we're overloaded with information.
Yeah.
So it's difficult to check
Like
all
if
these
something's
things
legit.
manually,
Yeah,
like, you know.
100%, yeah.
Like I don't know if you've ever tried to get like your birth certificate from
Oh, no.
a government entity. It is a bitch.
The joys. Yeah.
Right. So imagine there was a system that kind of already, I suppose, it streamlines the processes
100%.
because there's no
And you can
physical,
trust it.
there's no people behind it. It's software, and computers are really good at automating tasks and doing things just a lot quicker.
Yeah, 100%.
So that's why
That's
I feel like
your
we would.
immediate thing. It makes a lot of sense because it leaves a trail. So if someone stole something from you, there's a very good digital trail that you can follow to try and get it back. And like you say, for stuff like identity things, like your birth certificate, we can encrypt that, put it on the blockchain. It will never get lost, and you'll be able to see where it is all the time. So another very interesting one is, why would you need to use this as money, right? We're all starting to, especially in South Africa, we're very good at financial transactions, using a digital money, stuff like that. But the real thing we want to be able to do with cryptocurrencies is, I want to be able to replicate the results of the real world. So if you think about it, in the real world, you can go, what do you like to buy in general?
I like to buy
Tobacco.
food.
You like to buy food, right? You would want to go into Checkers and Pick and Pay and stuff, be able to buy yourself a milli and give the cashier money. She doesn't need to know who you are. You don't need to know who she is. You just know you have a milli and you gave her money and she's letting you go now, right?
Yeah.
You guys have exchanged value between each other, and that works because you trust that the 100 Rand is real. It's money. It's exchanging something for that. So we want to be able to replicate that in the digital realm. Now, the thing that gets in the way of this is, as we've all probably seen of late, whatever you do online can be traced, right? They can see your IP address, your location, all of that fancy stuff. So we want to try replicate this thing, but there comes a few problems with that. Obviously, you want anonymity, but you also want the thing to be secure. You don't want to have to put your credit card detail into dodgy websites.
Yeah.
And
Rather just send them some Bitcoin.
There we
done.
go, done. But the other thing you want to be able to do is prevent people from double spending a coin. So this is probably one of the biggest issues. When you keep someone's identity anonymous and they give you a digital coin, how are you to know that they didn't give that same digital coin to someone else? Okay? So this is what the blockchain is there to solve, right? If someone's giving the same digital coin out to two different people, the validators will be able to see that this coin has now gone to two different people.
So they'll see that user 123 had 50 Bitcoin.
Yeah,
that's a lot of Bitcoin.
That's a lot of Bitcoin. Okay.
Or let me use something more imaginary.
Yeah.
So user 123 had 50 imaginary internet money.
Internet
monies, and I went and I paid user 125.
Oh no.
26 internet monies.
Yes.
But now I want to go to user 126, and I now need to give them 25 internet monies.
But you don't have 25.
But I only have 24.
Yeah.
But maybe I hack the system, make up another coin, give it to 126. Free money.
No problem.
But now, because we're operating on a blockchain, the sisters.
Yeah, the validators.
I said the sisters.
I heard that's what the sisters got to
Okay,
do.
the validators will be like, this okay.
Suspect.
Somehow he got one extra internet monies.
Yeah.
Kick him
out, right? So this is what the validators do. Whenever you hear someone saying, I'm mining Bitcoin or I'm staking Ethereum, whatever the story is, this is what they're doing. It's actually very simple at the end of the day. They solve a whole bunch of long math equations which basically tell you if the transaction someone else was doing is legit or not legit. And this is the thing most blockchains will take away if you try and double spend a coin or hack or whatever you want to do, is they will take away the anonymity now. So they will disclose your personal information now to the blockchain. So you got to keep the anonymity, you got to play by the rules. If you don't want to play by the rules, we disclose your information type of thing. So that's what we're trying to achieve at the end of the day. The same thing that you can do in the physical world, go and give a 100 Rand note to a teller. We want to achieve the same thing in the digital world. Now, Mr. Hunselaar, since you are much more softwarey than me, if you had to go about developing a cryptographic model, so something for security, how would you go about doing this? Or how do developers in general go about doing this?
Well, I suppose the first step to solving any problem is defining what the problem is. What's the threat?
Yeah.
So I think a nice easy example is you're a bank, and now 4 gentlemen with really nice masks and big guns walk in and point these things at you and are like, put the money in the bag.
Put the money.
I would define that as a threat, as a problem.
That seems like a threat to me.
Then I would come up with a system somehow of like, okay, fine. If I don't want people to be able to steal the money, I'm going to need to be able to put the money somewhere safe.
Exactly. Okay.
All right. So now,
assessing the threat.
So now, even if the bank robbers were like, put the money in the bag, you can be like, I would, bro.
Really would?
If it were me, if I could, I would. It's all yours. But
can't.
What's your email address?
Just 2-factor authentication, yeah?
And then I suppose the last step is you got to prove that it works.
Yeah, got you, yeah. So you got to test the mitigation strategy that you've said will work, right? So these are the 3 steps every cryptographic developer will go through. They'll define a threat, they'll assess its risk, then they'll design something to mitigate that risk, and then they'll test it out in the real world. So that's a general cryptographic model. Okay, so I think a good place to start for anyone who isn't familiar with cryptocurrencies, all of that stuff, everyone would have heard of Bitcoin and Ethereum. Mostly Bitcoin, maybe not Ethereum, right? But these are 2 ideas. One is called a proof of work, which is Bitcoin, and the other is proof of stake, which is Ethereum. And we'll just go through these very high level, we won't go too hectic into it. But Mr. Bunselaar, let's talk about Bitcoin first, right? So if me and you are running 2 competing Bitcoin mining farms now, and we both get a chance at solving some transactions on the Bitcoin blockchain, and we start solving it, and you finish before me, you are going to get a reward in the form of Bitcoin, because that's your incentive. That's your incentive to solve the block first. Now, the real issue comes in with this type of consensus algorithm is what happens when a whole bunch of people are competing for the same resources. What do you think will happen?
A lot of double work.
A lot of double work, fair.
And so I think a lot of energy would be spent on just solving one problem.
Right? So you run into people constantly upgrading their hardware using more electricity to try and accomplish the same type of work because you get paid the incentive to complete the work quicker than the next guy. So that's why it's called proof of work, because the harder you work, the quicker you solve the block, the more likely you are to get paid. And that's your incentive.
Okay.
But the whole idea is you solve a bunch of complex mathematical equations.
That makes a lot of intuitive sense.
It makes a lot of sense, right? And as the blocks get bigger and bigger, you start to solve more complex equations, and it takes longer to solve a block. So you need more computing power, more electricity, more heat generated. Okay. So that's a proof of work algorithm. Ethereum, on the other hand, has moved over to a proof of stake algorithm. And this simply means that you put up some collateral. I need to buy 32 Ethereum, which is quite a little bit at the current price, but I need to hold 32 Ethereum. And then I pledge it to the board of Ethereum. And I say, I've got 32, I'm invested, I'm keen, let's go for it. They'll say, okay, we'll give you some transactions. And then every time you solve some transactions, you get paid a little bit.
So if I'm understanding this correctly,
yes.
In the first example, anyone could go
Anyone.
But with proof of stake, you're saying, okay, I'm locking away this
because I believe in the project.
This cash monies, all right? But in return, you get the right to solve those
You get
equations.
the opportunity, yes, 100%. And the catch side of that is if you are found to act maliciously on the Ethereum blockchain, so you have a buddy who wants his transaction, it's a bit shady to go through, and you sort of push it through, they will take some of your Ethereum as penalty, and they won't give you new transactions for a little bit, right? Yeah. So you have a financial penalty. So that's proof of stake. Obviously, you're competing with less resources. You need to stake first, and then they allow you to run a node. There's obviously a few things that go with that, but that's more or less the difference. One is very high on computing power, proof of work, because you compete with everyone around you. Whoever's got the better PC, they get the reward. Yeah. Proof of stake is more about as long as I continue to act over long periods of time in a good nature.
Yeah, I suppose also it ensures better. I want to say camaraderie, but I think like sportsmanship because you have like skin in the game. Like if you be a dick,
everyone gonna know you were the dick,
and you're gonna lose money over that.
100%.
Yeah, I mean, I guess like you can use the stake anyway, but it's probably still gonna hurt.
Yeah,
and
no,
you'll probably
a
lose
lot.
your right to mine more.
Yeah, because they can confiscate up to 50% of your Ethereum, and you can think. I think to run an Ethereum node now at 32 Bitcoin is over R1 million, so you can imagine half of that just goes. It's gonna hurt a little bit.
A lot.
Maybe not to Elon, but to me and you.
Yeah.
It's going to be a bit of a rough one. So I think as we move away from the cryptocurrencies themselves, let's talk a bit about the stuff behind the crypto. This is what the episode's about, right? What's the stuff behind crypto? And now, obviously, we talked about digital assets. These things are there. There's obviously software that lies behind it, right? So we're just going to do a quick one here. The software behind Ethereum, Bitcoin, all of that stuff is really the heart of cryptocurrency. It's what everything runs on. And a lot of it's to basically optimize network stability. You obviously don't want the network going down when you have to make a transaction.
True.
That's why we like MasterCard and Visa, because they're always up. You can always pay for things no matter where you are in the world, right? So network stability, verification. Obviously, a large part of the software is this transaction legit? Is this one not legit, right? So that's a lot of what the software is doing. And then there's something known as smart contracts. Now, this is where we get into some of the cooler stuff for the future. So a smart contract could be something like, easiest to understand is your house. Your house is a type of contract. And if we could make it smart, we could basically speed things up. So if the contract wasn't a piece of paper, it was something digital. And it could say, it'll use if and and loops, right? It will say, if financing is approved, move on to the next step automatically, right? And that could all happen on the blockchain and be logged. At the moment, it goes from attorney, and then they say yes, and then it comes back to a piece of paper, and then you must sign it. It's a whole bunch of crap. Smart contracts,
then you have to
none
pay
of that.
Courier fees.
Then you have to pay courier fees, admin fees, this fees, that fees. This takes out a whole bunch of that. Right? So that's a smart contract.
That's a plus.
Right?
That's a plus.
That's
if
a
I
plus.
ever heard a plus.
That's a plus, right? And the whole idea behind software is to take out, like you say, that middleman, the courier fee and the admin fee. This is what's known as peer-to-peer infrastructure. So literally taking out the middleman. If me and you can do a transaction to sell a house between us, we don't need a lawyer and a this and a courier and a court judge to sign things off.
And there won't be a way for you to sell me a house and then for you to then turn around and say, but that house is still mine. Actually.
You see. So everything can get transferred one time, and the transaction can be trusted. Right? The trust is a big part of this. So that's what we call peer-to-peer architecture. Like I said, automatic rules enforcement. So if this, then that. If that, then this type of thing, right? If and and rules, which we know software is very good with that. And obviously security, like you say, you don't want to sell someone your house, they move in, and then you go to them and say, no, sorry, I still got the deed. It's actually my house. You got to pay me rent now. Type of thing,
There was a clause that
there was a
said,
clause.
if I put on brown shoes on this day,
Yeah,
still my house, and look at my shoes.
exactly. And this all comes back to where we fit in. Obviously, we don't really fit into this. It's cool. Don't get me wrong. It's really cool. But how intense the software is, like again, proof of work, proof of stake, all of that stuff, how intense it is will determine how heavy the infrastructure is that we have to design.
Yeah.
How hectic is the cooling infrastructure? How hectic is the data center where this is all housed? Comes back to mechanical engineering. Exactly all the way. Now we get into the mechanical stuff, Mr. Inslaw. I know I've wet your palate a bit.
Yeah,
right?
You made me understand.
The real thing now comes back to how much infrastructure, how much computing power are we going to need? And now, Mr. Unslaw, since you're my electrical engineer, would you like to take us into what's the type of electrical infrastructure you might be looking at here? Obviously, we said there's a lot of electrical infrastructure, but what is the general stuff that's going to go into this?
So, I mean, like, you're going to have a lot of PCs lying around.
Yeah, 100%.
They're going to need power.
A little bit.
And especially if you've got a lot of mining units, whatever. So, like, you're going to need power to this facility. And, like, one thing I like to do to sort of conceptualize Bitcoin is, like, when people ask the question of, you know, where's the value in it? Like, where does the value hold? Like with gold, you know, you
can see it, it's shiny.
One way I like to think of it is, like, there's two ways that the value actually gets created. The first one is I have to invest a lot of money in property, in computers, in power, in infrastructure to be able to keep this system running.
Yeah. Okay. And that's all jobs for other people.
That's jobs for other people, and there's work that goes into that, and it's providing a service. Yeah. So I would say that's kind of where the value comes in. But like any business, you have to have the infrastructure. So you need high voltage electrical supply. You need like stitch gears and load balancing. You know, like maybe like it's a bit of a tough day. It's really hot, so now you need to put the coolers on. And all of that stuff. And like also you want like redundant power because if the system goes down, it's a bit of a backup. It is, and in some blockchains you get penalized for downtime. So I mean, it's important to have that together. Not a lack of time. Not a lack of time. I think what goes hand in hand with this as well is you're going to have a lot of specialized computing equipment. I think the interesting thing about this now is we've moved away from the hobbyist who can set up his own little crypto mining rig, and we've moved all the way to this is getting properly industrialized. You can't just run it off your laptop anymore. You're buying specific CPUs, specific GPU units to mine cryptocurrency. And that's obviously very specialized. So that goes a lot into crypto. Depending on the blockchain you're solving for, you might need to optimize for quick access memory, so something like RAM, versus maybe something longer where you need lots more storage to store long-term memory, stuff like that. Yeah. And networking is actually a very hectic one. You can imagine if you are now competing for a Bitcoin block, remember you're competing internationally. So if South Africa's network speeds are slower than Argentina or, I don't know, Spain, whatever, you might have the best hardware, but it's the internet that's keeping you back. Yeah. So there's a lot of things to think about here, really, if we think about it. And then I think since you are my CFD expert, right, fluid dynamics, I thought it would be interesting. Just take us a bit through what type of cooling we might be looking for in these types of centers. Yeah, so, I mean, for instance, when computers operate, I mean, everybody knows, like, I mean, my PC overheated is a very common excuse. Oh, yeah, 100%. For like, your PC dying. So, like, they produce a lot of heat. Yeah, 100%. All right, so like a good example is a single Antminer S19, and that can generate roughly 3,000 watts of thermal output. It's like a little space heater, man. Like, yeah, literally. I mean, like the heaters. Yeah, I mean, like, the heaters actually, it makes heaters redundant because just set up your mining rig. Heat up your room. Keep you warm for the winter. Save on your heating bill right then and there. Look at that. But that wouldn't be a great thing because if you let it overheat, it's gonna die. Not gonna be great. And then you're gonna be sad, man. Yeah. So you're gonna need like some sort of cooling design, and you can get like an air cooling design with some like high flow rates. You know, someone get some convection in that. You know. But like a nice, maybe a more efficient one with like maybe a liquid cooling system. Have you seen some liquid cooling systems? Oh, it's beautiful, man. It's just, imagine you like had fish in there. Maybe they would die from the heat. It would be cool. It would be cool. It would be interesting. Yeah. And then like also, especially if you have like a lot of rigs, you need to be able to cool all of them. So now you got to start thinking bigger picture, not just the cooling system on my laptop, my fancy laptop. for my building that has all of my mining units in there. You know,
Yeah,
you got
100%.
to start thinking about get some HVAC involved.
How it scales up.
Get
Yeah.
some. Yeah. So I mean, I would
I
say
think
those
that-
are the things you got to think about. Like,
Yeah, 100%. I think what people forget is when you start to scale up, you go from hobbyist to where we come in. Because there's no way a hobbyist can design to remove a megawatt of heat, for example. Right?
Yeah.
It's a lot of heat. There's no way you'll until you get to our level, you know, till you get to our high level.
Yeah.
Right? Then
see
you
what
can
you did
then you see what I did there. So once you start scaling up and things become industrialized, you need to hire specialized help like a CFD expert
Yeah.
in order to make sure heat is dissipated correctly. Okay?
Like a software engineer to make sure that everything's running smoothly.
This is what we say. This is what we say. Then just a quick word on maybe thinking just a slight difference between what a data center is and what a crypto mining center would be. So a data center, you can think like at your bank or something like Amazon Web Services, is not optimized for crypto. It can probably do a very good job, but it's not optimized for crypto. Remember, a data center is there specifically for uptime and security. It's not necessarily there for computing power. Okay, so this is where things are going to start to diverge a lot in the future. Data centers are there to store data. They don't necessarily need these large amounts of computing power. So it's not like you could take a data center and drop in a crypto mining company. It's going to be very different applications, especially, like I say, when we start to scale up. Okay, do you agree with that?
I agree.
Makes sense, right?
163%.
163%. So I think let's end off a little bit on how the future looks for crypto, right? I think the interesting thing is the OG is obviously Bitcoin, and a lot of people compete for Bitcoins when they're mining. But a lot of blockchains are actually looking at different protocols for solving things. No one's really doing proof of work anymore because it's so energy intensive. And obviously, global warming, climate change, all of that stuff.
All that bullshit.
No, all of that crap, right? Who believes in that? But a lot of new blockchains coming out. You look at the Solana blockchain, Ethereum blockchain. A lot of people are moving to proof of stake just because of the energy efficiency thing. And it's also nice. You get people to lock up their money, put a bit of oomph behind it. You know what I'm saying? Then if we look at, I think in the coming years, we'll start seeing, like you have gold mining companies like Anglo Gold Ashanti, you have PGMs with Sibanye, all of those guys. You're going to start seeing companies listed on international exchanges that will be mining cryptocurrency. They are going to be optimized to mine cryptocurrency. Like we mine gold today and PGMs, it's going to be needed for the world to come. And like I said, these things are going to look very different to data centers, but they're going to be their own business in total, which is very interesting, right? New opportunities for us engineers.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
World is going in...
World's going in crazy, crazy ways. Just in terms of the tech itself, I think we might see a lot more liquid immersion. So this is where it comes into a data center versus a mining company is going to be very different. The heat load is going to be massive in a mining company. When you're storing data, there's heat, but not as much as mining.
I mean, you're just putting it somewhere, and maybe every now and then you're requesting things. But when
see.
you're solving complex
Complex
equations with algorithms,
Takes a lot.
There's a lot more work being done.
Takes a lot, right? And then you're going to start having things like artificial intelligence integrated into these cooling systems. Maybe things where you're choosing when the temperature's right outside only to mine so that you can use passive cooling systems. There's going to be a lot involved in it.
Takes us back to our episode where newer
is
better.
always better. Always better, right?
Always.
So I think key takeaway on this part of it is there's very cool opportunities coming up for engineers. So if you've just listened to this episode, you're not interested in cryptocurrencies, the idea of the cryptocurrency space becoming more, formalized is going to introduce a whole bunch of opportunities for mechanical engineers, for civil engineers building these centers, for electrical engineers, definitely. There's going to be a lot of opportunity for engineers going forward in the crypto space, not necessarily in the developing a cryptocurrency or a blockchain or whatever, but in the actual infrastructure behind it, which I think is awesome, right? And we don't have to talk about the rest of that. So final reflections, Mr. Hunselaar. I'll give you mine, and then you can give me yours. Then we can see for once, right? So I think crypto, very interesting. All the tech behind it. I think it's an exciting space for those to come. It's not just Dogecoin and Elon tweeting something and Trump. I don't know if you saw Trump has his own cryptocurrency and Melania. So very vibey, right?
All the power, man.
It's very wild. It's very wild to see. But I think in terms of the space getting more formalized is very good. I think it's good for humanity, and it's especially good for engineers, giving us new opportunities, new places to delve into, and I think it's going to produce a lot of amazing tech. Your side?
I agree 100% with what you said. I think it's the future is now, and either get on the ship or get out of the way.
Get out of the way. All right, guys, that has been our episode on cryptocurrency. Thank you very much for joining us. If you want to reach out to us, it's highlevelpodcast@gmail.com. We're going to end, as always, on recommendations. Mr. Unsalad, do you have a recommendation for us this week?
I do.
Okay, yeah. Do you want to share it?
So, there's a Netflix series called The Recruit.
Okay.
It's about this guy. He joins the CIA, but not as a spy, as a lawyer. And then sort of just you see the shenanigans he gets up to.
The shenanigans.
First season, it's good, but it's okay. Second season, I thought was pretty good. Sad thing is, and maybe this is going to deter people from watching
got you.
is they've decided to cancel it because it is a lot like a series called Night Agent. And apparently Netflix would
There's too
rather
much
pursue
overlap.
Night Agent than...
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah,
That's a
so
vibe.
maybe that would be my other recommendation, but I haven't really watched that. So
Okay, got you. But worth a watch, you say. How many seasons?
2.
2. And they've decided to cut it there. I'm not going
Yeah.
to get invested in that, man.
It's good watching. I mean,
A good watching. Okay.
it ends in a way that you can at least leave the story. It doesn't have like some burning...
Okay, got you. Yeah, like they're going to reboot it at some point type of thing. Okay.
They don't really give a lot of room for that.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, so I've got 2 recommendations, right? Started watching Grand Designs again. Firstly, maybe not the place to get into this, but do you also have like on My Family Cinema where you click on something and it just will not load? Right? It will just say like streaming and then it won't do anything.
Yeah, I suppose this is permission to bid.
Right?
And then we've been reporting those. And it's been...
Nothing happens. Anyway, started watching Grand Designs again. Love it. Great. Excellent. All of those things. Then I started playing a game. And I feel like I've decided I have a very addictive personality. So I've started playing this game so much. I loved it so much that I deleted it yesterday because it's too much. It's taking up my whole life. It's called Pokemon Unite. It was excellent, but recommend it if you don't have a super addictive personality, which I feel like most of our listeners do. So recommend to not recommend, basically. That's
recommended, but with warning labels.
With warning labels, right? Thank you guys so much for joining us. We hope to see you in the next episode. Have an amazing week.